Hey everybody, this is Death by D4, and welcome to my guide on all of the new class feature variants available in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot to go over, so be sure to subscribe and let's dive right on in. First off, let's just get one thing out of the way. Unfortunately, the Artificer was the only class to not receive a class feature variant, which honestly isn't all that surprising now that I think about it. After all, the Artificer is the newest class available to us, and it's a very solid class overall, so seeing it omitted in the supplement is pretty understandable. Either way, as sad as it is, there's just nothing to go over for the Artificer, so let's move right along. Up next, we've got the Barbarian, which received 2 new features for itself. At 3rd level, you get Primal Knowledge, which grants you a new skill proficiency of your choice from the list available to you at 1st level. You also get this feature again at 10th level. Not a crazy feature overall, but a pretty nice one that helps expand the out-of-combat utility of the class in general, so that's pretty nice. Finally, at 7th level, you get Instinctive Pounce, which allows you to move up to half of your speed whenever you use your bonus action to enter into a rage. Again, not a crazy feature overall, but the added movement on top of your already increased movement speed is pretty nice, allowing you to throw yourself right into the front lines of combat quite easily. Next up, we've got the Bard, which received 2 new features for itself along with a whole bunch of new spells to choose from. From your added spells, you've gained access to Color Spray, Command, Aid, Enlarge Reduce, Mirror Image, Mass Healing Word, Slow, Phantasmal Killer, Rary's Telepathic Bond, Hero's Feast, Prismatic Spray, Antipathy Sympathy, and Prismatic Wall, all of which are fantastic spells for you to have access to as a bard. At 2nd level, you get Magical Inspiration, which allows you or another creature with one of your Bardic Inspiration dice to add them to any amount of healing or damage caused by a spell. Though not much of a huge boost overall, the fact that this feature extends to any Bardic Inspiration dice that you give out is actually incredible, as it really does expand the options available to you and your Bardic Inspiration dice. Not only that, but since this feature doesn't specify it only works with leveled spells, you can technically use it with cantrips as well, making them very applicable overall. Finally, whenever you get an ability score improvement, you also get Bardic Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your expertises or bard cantrips. Nothing crazy, but a great feature to have for fixing any mistakes made during your character's progression. Next up, we've got the Cleric, which received 3 new features for itself along with a bunch of new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you've gained access to Aura of Vitality, Aura of Life, Aura of Purity, Sunbeam, Sunburst, and Power Word Heal, all of which are fantastic spells to have access to as a Cleric. At 2nd level, you gain a new option for your channel divinity, being Harness Divine Power, which allows you to use your bonus action to expend a use of your channel divinity to regain a spell slot of a level equal to half of your proficiency bonus rounded up. Definitely a really nice feature for you to have, especially if you're having any difficulty finding a use for your other channel divinity features. Whenever you get an ability score improvement, you also get Cantrip Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your Cleric cantrips. Again, nothing crazy, but a great feature to have for fixing any mistakes made during your character's progression. Finally, at 8th level, you get Blessed Strikes, which allows you to deal an extra 1d8 radiant damage to a creature when you damage it with a cantrip or weapon attack once per turn. Though slightly weaker than your Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting features, the fact that this applies to both your cantrip and weapon attacks at the same time just makes this far more applicable for you overall, allowing you to utilize it however you see fit, so that's pretty nice. Next up, we've got the Druid, which received 2 new features for itself along with a few new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you gain access to Protection from Evil and Good, Augury, Continual Flame, Enlarge Reduce, Aura of Vitality, Elemental Weapon, Revivify, Divination, Fire Shield, Cone of Cold, Flesh to Stone, Symbol, and Incendiary Cloud. Of the spells made available to you, I'm going to give a special shout out to Revivify and Cone of Cold, as these are just great spells for you to get access to as a Druid. At 2nd level, you get Wild Companion, which allows you to expand a use of your Wild Shape feature to cast the Find Familiar spells without requiring any material components. However, the familiar that you summon is considered a Fae instead of a beast, and it disappears after a number of hours equal to half your Druid's level. Anyway, despite your familiar not being quite as viable as others, this is still a pretty nice alternative for your Wild Shape uses, especially if you never really plan on ever making use of your Wild Shape feature to begin with. At the very least, I can see this being very useful for scouting and long-distance messaging, so there's definitely something that can be done with it. Overall, a rather niche feature for you to have, but certainly one that works well and feels appropriate for the class in general. Finally, when you get an ability score improvement, you also get Cantrip Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your Druid cantrips. Again, nothing crazy, but this feature is great for fixing any mistakes that you make during your character's progression. Next up, we've got the Fighter, which received 1 new feature for itself along with 5 new fighting styles and 7 new Battlemaster maneuvers to choose from. First, let's just go over all of the new fighting styles. Blind fighting grants you 10 feet of blind sight, allowing you to perceive creatures that aren't behind total cover or that take the hide action while invisible. Nothing crazy, but definitely a really nice benefit for any non-dark vision fighter out there. Interception allows you to use your reaction when another creature within 5 feet of you is hit with an attack, and reduce the damage that they take by 1d10 plus your proficiency modifier. However, you must be wielding a shield, symbol, or martial weapon in order to do this. Certainly a niche fighting style, that's for sure, but still a highly effective damage deterrent if utilized correctly. Superior Technique grants you one of the Battlemaster's maneuvers with a single d6 for a superiority die that recharges after a short rest. Though not hugely beneficial for every fighter subclass out there, stacking this with the Battlemaster subclass will just broaden your options for combat even further, so be sure to take careful consideration of which maneuvers you'd like to have when considering this fighting style for yourself. Thrown weapon fighting allows you to draw and throw a weapon as a single part of your attack, and grants you a +2 bonus to any damage that you deal with the thrown weapon. Though not the most powerful option out there, this fighting style still makes throwing weapons into a totally viable option for you, opening up a completely new way of fighting for yourself. So if the idea of slinging daggers or yeeting hammers interests you, then feel free to give this one a shot. And for your last fighting style, Unarmed Fighting allows you to make unarmed strikes that deal 1d6 plus your strength modifier's worth of bludgeoning damage. Also, if you aren't wielding a shield or weapon in either hand, then the damage increases from a d6 to a d8 instead. Oh, and at the start of your turn while you're grappling another creature, you also get to deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage to them for free. Wow! Though technically not quite as effective as the monk class overall, this fighting style still opens up a similar means of combat for you, while also making you into one of the best grapplers in the entire game. So if you want to go around punching and headlocking people into oblivion, then look no further than this fighting style. Alright, now just before we get into the new class feature, let's just quickly go over the new Battlemaster maneuvers first. Ambush allows you to add your superiority die to any stealth check or initiative roll that you make. Certainly a niche maneuver for yourself, but one that will definitely pay out well for you in the long run. Bait and Switch allows you to expend a superiority die on your turn to switch places with another willing creature, granting yourself a bonus to your AC equal to the number rolled. Definitely a very situational maneuver, that's for sure, but one that's highly effective at pulling your allies away safely from enemies during combat. Brace allows you to use your reaction to expend a superiority die to attack a creature when it moves into range of your melee weapon, adding the die to the damage if it hits. Definitely a far more viable alternative to holding your action, and a solid option for you to take overall, especially when paired with the Sentinel feat, allowing you to very effectively lock down enemies as they pass by you during combat. Commanding Presence allows you to add your superiority die to any intimidation, performance, or persuasion check that you make. Well, though not a combat-oriented maneuver, it certainly has its uses for social interaction, so take it if that interests you. Grappling Strike allows you to expend a superiority die to use your bonus action after you hit a creature with a melee attack, and attempt to grapple it, adding a superiority die to the athletics check made. Definitely a super solid option overall, and one that pairs extremely well with the new unarmed fighting style. Quick Toss allows you to expend a superiority die to use your bonus action to make a range attack using a thrown weapon. You can also draw the thrown weapon as a part of this bonus action, and you add the superiority die to the damage dealt on a hit. Well, though you may think this might actually pair really well with the thrown weapon fighting style, it actually doesn't. After all, you can always just make a thrown weapon attack as an offhand attack. However, since this maneuver does technically ignore the restrictions of two-weapon fighting and further increases the damage dealt, I'd still say that it's a good option for you if something like this does interest you. Either way, though it's a pretty lackluster maneuver overall, it's still a very fun and versatile one that you can make use on almost any build out there. And for your last Battlemaster maneuver, Tactical Assessment allows you to add your superiority die to any investigation, history, or insight check that you make. Just like I said with Commanding Presence, though not a combat-oriented maneuver, it certainly has its uses for social interactions, so take it if it interests you. Phew, alright, now onto the new feature. Whenever you get an ability score improvement, you also get Martial Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your fighting styles or Battlemaster maneuvers. Well, as I said with Cantrip Versatility, though nothing crazy, this is still a great feature for you to have for fixing any mistakes that you make during your character's progression. Next up, we've got the Monk, which received 4 new features for itself. At 2nd level, you get Dedicated Weapon, which allows you to turn almost any weapon into a monk weapon over the course of a short rest. However, the weapon must be a simple or martial weapon that you are proficient with and lacks the heavy or special properties. Also, you can only dedicate yourself to one weapon at a time in this way. Nothing crazy, but I really do like the fact that this feature allows you to play as a weapon-oriented monk without necessarily having to be a Kensai, so that's pretty cool. At 3rd level, you get Key Fueled Attack, which allows you to use your bonus action to make an unarmed strike whenever you use your action to spend 1 or more key points to make another form of attack. In general, this basically fixes a number of the Monk's subclass features that would otherwise interfere with your martial arts bonus action unarmed strikes, allowing you to make proper use of your alternative attacks without necessarily sacrificing them in the process, so that's pretty nice. At 4th level, you get Quickened Healing, which allows you to use your action to spend 2 key points to roll in your martial arts die and heal for the amount rolled plus your proficiency bonus. Wow! Though not necessarily the best way of sustaining yourself during the middle of combat, your ability to regain all of your key points after meditating for 30 minutes basically means that you can heal yourself extremely easily during a short rest, and that's just insane. Overall, an absolutely fantastic feature for you to get, and one that you should definitely take full advantage of once you get there. Finally, at 5th level, you get Focused Aim, which allows you to spend 1 to 3 key points when you miss an attack roll, increasing your roll by 2 for each key point spent and possibly turning the missed attack into a hit. Again, just wow! This is an absolutely incredible feature for you, especially for getting it at 5th level. After all, not only do you get extra attack at this point, but you also get Stunning Strike, allowing you to very easily attempt to stun just any creature you absolutely need to during combat. And of course, you could also pair this feature with your alternative attacks too, making it extremely useful when making sure that your key points spent on those attacks don't end up going to waste. All in all, another fantastic feature, and one that I highly recommend making use of when necessary. Next up, we've got the Paladin, which received 2 new features for itself along with 3 new fighting styles and 3 new spells to choose from. For the added spells, you've gained access to Gentle Repose, Prayer of Healing, and Warding Bond, all of which are fantastic spells for you to gain access to as a Paladin. For your new fighting styles, you gain access to Blind Fighting and Interception, both of which I've already talked about. However, you also gain access to Blessed Warrior, which allows you then to gain access to 2 Cleric cantrips and cast them as Paladin cantrips instead. Wow, a Paladin with actual cantrips? Now I've seen everything. That said, as cool as this is, it's not like these cantrips are really going to be able to compete with your Divine Smite feature, so just keep that in mind when making your selection. At 3rd level, you gain a new option for your Channel Divinity, being Harness Divine Power, which works exactly the same way as it does for Clerics. Again, it's definitely a really nice feature for you to have, especially if you're having difficulty making good use of your other Channel Divinity features. Or, you know, if you just want to be able to use your Divine Smite feature a few more times. And finally, whenever you gain an ability score improvement, you also get Martial Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your fighting styles. Again, nothing crazy, but this is a great feature for you to get for fixing any mistakes that you make during your character's progression. Next up, we've got the Ranger, which received an astounding 9 new features for itself along with 3 new fighting styles and 11 new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you gain access to Entangle, Searing Smite, Aid, Enhance Ability, Gust of Wind, Magic Weapon, Elemental Weapon, Meld to Stone, Revivify, Dominate Beast, and Greater Restoration, all of which are fantastic spells for you to gain access to as a Ranger. For your new fighting style, you gain access to Blind Fighting and Thrown Weapon Fighting, both of which I've already talked about. However, you also gain access to Druidic Warrior, which allows you to gain access to 2 Druid cantrips and cast them as Ranger cantrips instead. Wow, a Ranger with actual cantrips? Now I've really seen everything. However, unlike with the Paladin class, I'd argue that you actually gain quite a lot more out of actually having access to cantrips, both in terms of damage and utility. Seriously, the list of Druid cantrips made available to you is pretty good overall, so make sure that you take serious consideration of your options when taking this fighting style. At 1st level, you get Favored Foe, which allows you to mark a creature that you hit with an attack, dealing 1d4 additional damage to it once per turn for up to 1 minute while you maintain concentration on this effect. The added damage increases to 1d6 at 6th level and 1d8 at 14th level, and you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. Alright, so there's just a huge amount of negativity surrounding this feature in general. Basically, everyone is just saying that Hunter's Mark is simply better in every way, and the fact that this feature requires your concentration just completely ruins its viability altogether. However, what I think people are failing to realize is that this feature isn't intended to replace Hunter's Mark at all. In fact, I think it's trying to fix issues that Rangers have while using Hunter's Mark to begin with. That being the fact that Hunter's Mark interferes with a number of the Ranger's other features by often requiring a bonus action. After all, Favored Foe only requires that you land an attack to activate it, meaning that you can now use your bonus action to perform other things on that turn, like an offhand attack or your Beastmaster Companion's actions. Heck, it could even allow you to conserve your spell slots a bit more too, though that's pretty minor overall, even for a half-caster. That said, is Favored Foe really better than Hunter's Mark? Honestly, it really just depends on a few things. Hunter's Mark typically outputs more damage, but Favored Foe can actually perform just as well as Hunter's Mark in certain situations, and allow you to make better use of your bonus action for other options during combat. So depending on what you're looking for, just take the option that works best for you. If you want my advice, use Hunter's Mark for ranged attacks, and then use Favored Foe for almost everything else. It may not technically be as much damage in the long run, but it'll just make things really easy for you to use in general. You also get Deft Explorer at 1st level, which grants you a variety of bonuses. At first level, you get Canny, which grants you an expertise and a skill proficiency that you're already proficient in, and 2 additional languages of your choice. At 6th level, you get Roving, which increases your walking speed by 5 feet and grants you a swimming and climbing speed equal to your walking speed. And at 10th level, you get Tireless, which allows you to use your action to grant yourself temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. You can also use this feature a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. Also, whenever you finish a short rest, you can now recover from 1 level of exhaustion. In general, all of these features are actually pretty good for you overall, and only keep getting better as you level up. After all, gaining an expertise and a skill is just very lovely for a ranger. Gaining increased movement speed is always nice for them as well, and both the temporary hit points and the exhaustion recovery you get from 10th level can make you far more resilient over the course of a long-term adventure. So overall, I'd say that this is a pretty nice set of abilities for yourself. At 2nd level, you get Spellcasting Focus, which allows you to use a Druidic focus as a spellcasting focus. I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot that the ranger even got this feature, so it just kinda goes to show just how utterly pointless this one is. So let's just move right along. At 3rd level, you get Primal Awareness, which grants you additional spells that you know for free. Also, you can cast each of these spells without expending a spell slot once per long rest. Of the spells made available to you, you get Speak with Animals, Beast Sense, Speak with Plants, Locate Creature, and Commune with Nature, all of which are great utility spells to receive as a ranger. That and being able to cast each of these spells for free is just icing on the cake at this point, allowing you to very easily make use of them. So yeah, another very convenient feature for yourself and one that fits extremely well with the ranger class in general. Also, if you happen to be a Beastmaster Ranger, you also get Primal Companion at 3rd level, which allows you to make your Beastmaster Companion a summonable creature based on a generalized stat block. You can then command this creature using your bonus action, and you can resummon the creature if it dies using a spell slot of 1st level or higher over the course of 1 minute. Wow! I'm not gonna lie, but this overhaul for the Ranger's Companion feature really fixes up a lot of the issues that it comes with, especially since this feature now allows you to basically summon any beast you could possibly imagine for yourself. You know, provided that it fits into the generalized stat block of the beast of the land, sea, or sky. And honestly, I much prefer this to how the subclass originally worked. Not only do these creature stat blocks scale really well with your character as they level up, but they have some pretty useful utility behind them as well, like the Beast of Land's ability to knock enemies prone, the Beast of the Sea's ability to grapple enemies, and the Beast of the Air's ability to ignore opportunity attacks. Seriously, just wow! What an absolutely fantastic feature for you to get, and one that I would absolutely recommend making use of over the original whenever possible. Whenever you get an ability score improvement, you also get martial versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your fighting styles. Again, nothing crazy, but it's a great feature to have for fixing mistakes made during your character's progression, yada yada yada. Finally, at 10th level, you get Nature's Veil, which allows you to turn invisible as a bonus action until the start of your next turn. You can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. Wow! This feature just knocks Hide in Plain Sight completely out of the park, as being able to just turn invisible even for 1 round as a bonus action is just insanely useful for you. With this, you can now very easily initiate a surprise attack against your enemies, or even retreat from a terrible situation before the going gets too rough. Either way, just never ever take Hide in Plain Sight ever again. Trust me, you will never regret doing that. Next up, we've got the Rogue, which received one new feature for itself. At 3rd level, you get Steady Aim, which, if you haven't moved during your turn, allows you to use your bonus action to reduce your speed to 0 and gain advantage on your next attack roll made until the end of your turn. Okay, so wow! This feature is absolutely ridiculous. Seriously, it almost sounds broken, I'm not gonna lie. And honestly, for those of you curious as to why the Rogue gets such a busted sounding feature like this, it's largely just to offer players a means of resolving the whole argument of whether or not the Rogue has properly hidden themselves from their enemies. Now, instead of having that argument with the Dungeon Master, you can just sit yourself down somewhere and gain advantage on your attacks that way. Honestly, it's a bit of a blunt solution to this problem, but still one that I think works extremely well overall for them, so yeah, be sure to take advantage of it whenever possible. Next up, we've got the Sorcerer, which received 2 new features for itself along with 2 new metamagic options and 10 new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you've gained access to Grease, Flame Blade, Flaming Sphere, Magic Weapon, Vampiric Touch, Fire Shield, Bigby's Hand, Flesh to Stone, Autoluke's Freezing Sphere, and Demiplane, all of which are fantastic spells to gain access to as the Sorcerer. Now, as for your new metamagic options, Seeking Spell allows you to spend 2 sorcery points to reroll a missed spell attack roll. This metamagic can also be combined with other metamagic options. Wow, so basically this just grants you advantage on all your spell attack rolls if you want them to. That is just absurd. Seriously, if the idea of whiffing any of your high level spell attacks bothers you, then you'll probably want to take this metamagic option for yourself, as you'll likely find that it'll pay for itself almost right away when you need it to the most. And for your last meta magic option, Transmuted Spell allows you to spend 1 sorcery point to change the damage type of any spell with the following damage types into another of the same types: Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, Poison, and Thunder. All things considered, the mechanical uses of this meta magic are actually pretty inconsequential, as you'll likely use this more so to avoid an enemy's damage resistances than exploit their weaknesses. However, even in spite of this, there's just no way I couldn't just gush over the fact that you can now transform a spell into another damage type. This is just insanely cool. Sure, it's a shame it costs 1 sorcery point every time you use it, but that's really not all that much in the long run. Overall, an absolutely fantastic meta magic option for you, and one that definitely fits well with the Sorcerer class in general. Whenever you gain an ability score improvement, you also get Sorceress Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your meta magic options or cantrips. Well, as I've said for all of the versatility options so far, though it's nothing crazy, this is still a great feature for you to have for fixing any mistakes made during your character's progression. And finally, at 5th level, you get Magical Guidance, which allows you to spend 1 sorcery point to reroll a failed ability check. Wow! So much like I said with Seeking Spell, this feature basically just grants you advantage on all of your skill checks. That is just absurd. Seriously, though it lacks a lot of use during combat, there's just no way I can downplay how useful it is to be able to reroll a skill check. Definitely a really nice feature for you to get, and one that you'll likely be glad that you have for later on. Next up, we've got the Warlock, which received 1 new feature for itself along with 1 new Pact Boon, 8 new Eldritch Invocations, and 5 new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you gain access to Mislead, Planar Binding, Teleportation Circle, Gate, and Weird, all of which are fantastic spells to gain access to as a Warlock. Okay, maybe with the exception of Weird, but the rest are all pretty good. As for your Eldritch Invocations, Eldritch Mind grants you advantage on Constitution saving throws made to maintain concentration on all of your spells. Definitely a really solid pick for you to take if you don't want to even bother with the Warcaster feat, that's for sure. Investment of the Chainmaster requires you to have taken the Pact of the Chain boon, and grants your summoned familiars a variety of new bonuses. These bonuses include a flying speed or swimming speed of 40 feet, the ability for you to command your familiar to attack as a bonus action, your familiar's attacks now ignore damage immunities and resistances to non-magical attacks, your familiar's saving throw DC now equals your spell save DC, and whenever your familiar takes damage, you can now use your reaction to grant them resistance to the damage taken. Wow! Seriously, all of these bonuses are pretty significant when applied to a familiar, especially considering you already gain better options for your familiars in general. Either way, for those of you interested in fighting tooth and nail beside your familiar companion, then be sure to pick up this invocation for yourself as soon as possible. Rebuke of the Talisman requires you to have taken the Pact of the Talisman boon, don't worry, we'll get to that later, and allows you to use a reaction to rebuke against a creature who hits the wearer of your talisman with an attack. This rebuke deals psychic damage equal to your proficiency bonus and pushes the creature 10 feet away from the wearer of the talisman. Though the damage and effect of this invocation is actually pretty minor overall, the fact that you can just do this every turn shouldn't be understated, along with the fact that there's no way for your enemy to avoid this whenever it happens. Either way, definitely consider taking this for yourself if you happen to take the Pact of the Talisman. Farscribe requires you to be 5th level and to have taken the Pact of the Tome boon, and allows a creature to write their name into your Book of Shadows. You can then cast the sending spell targeting a named creature without requiring any material components as an action. You can have a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus modifier. Not exactly the most exciting invocation out there, but definitely one that has some uses, so consider taking it if the convenience that it would provide is going to be useful for you. Undying Servitude requires you to be 5th level and allows you to cast the Animate Dead spell without using a spell slot once per long rest. Though a bit limiting in general, having the ability to get the Animate Dead spell as a Warlock is really nice, so take this invocation if that sort of thing interests you. Protection of the Talisman requires you to be 7th level and to have the Pact of the Talisman boon, and allows the wearer of your talisman to add a d4 to any saving throw that they fail a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. Wow! Though the bonus of your saving throw is pretty minor overall, any bonus to a saving throw like this could mean the difference between life and death. So if you have the Pact of the Talisman, definitely consider taking this invocation for yourself, as it's really going to pay off for yourself in the long run. Gift of the Protectors requires you to be 9th level and to have taken the Pact of the Tome boon, and allows a creature to write their name into your Book of Shadows. Whenever a named creature is reduced to 0 hit points, it instead lives on 1 hit point instead, regaining this effect after it takes a long rest. You can have a number of names equal to your proficiency bonus. Well, considering how many creatures that you can apply this to, this is some serious life insurance that you can offer the party for basically nothing, helping save your allies even when thrown against the worst that your enemies have to offer. So if you took the Pact of the Tome, definitely consider taking this invocation for yourself, as you'll likely be glad that you did it at some point in the future. And finally, for your last Eldritch Invocation, Bond of the Talisman requires you to be 12th level and have taken the Pact of the Talisman boon, and allows you to use your action to teleport to an unoccupied space next to the wearer of your talisman a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. The wearer of the talisman can also teleport to you in this exact same way. Definitely a very niche, though useful invocation, and one that I can see working extremely well between a Warlock and their chosen protector, or maybe between anybody else who's willing to put in some teamwork and creativity into this invocation's full extent. Either way, give it a try if that sort of thing interests you. Phew, alright, now onto your new class features. At 3rd level, you can choose a new Pact boon, being the Pact of the Talisman. With it, your patron gives you a talisman, which allows its wearer to add a d4 to any ability check that you fail the number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, recharging after a long rest. Oh, you can also reclaim your talisman if you lose it by performing a 1-hour ceremony during a short rest, and the talisman is destroyed if you ever die. Not the most substantial Pact boon by default, but remember that you can always enhance it by using your Eldritch Invocations. However, if you find no value at all in the other Pact boons out there, then I just highly recommend taking this one, as just having a passive effect intended to help succeed in the face of failure is always nice to have whenever things go poorly for you. And finally, whenever you get an ability score improvement, you also get Eldritch Versatility, which allows you to switch any one of your cantrips, Pact boons, or, at 12th level or higher, Mystic Arcanums. Wow! Honestly, even in spite of all of the other versatility options out there, this one is probably the most impactful one of them yet, as being able to change such significant parts of your character can be pretty transformative in general. Either way, like I've said before, this is a great feature for you to have for fixing any mistakes made during your character's progression. And finally, we've got the Wizard, which received one new feature for itself along with 4 new spells to choose from. For your added spells, you've gained access to Augury, Enhance Ability, Speak with Dead, and Divination. Nothing crazy, but all good spells to have access to as a wizard. And for the last class feature variant, at 3rd level you get Cantrip Formulas, which allows you to switch out any one of your wizard cantrips at the end of a long rest. Well then, it would appear that the wizard's versatility in spells has finally come full circle for them. Nothing crazy, but this is still a great feature for you to get, and as I've said many times already, it'll help fix any mistakes made during your character's progression. And that's it. If you liked the video, then be sure to subscribe and let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you'd like to have the chance to play D&D with me, then feel free to join my Discord server, and consider supporting me over on Patreon. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see all of you in the next video.